The air in Royal Crest Hospital felt heavy that afternoon, not with sickness, but with tension. Dr. Chinaza Okafor, head of the andrology unit, sat behind her cluttered desk, tapping her pen against a stack of untouched reports. Her mind wasn't on her patients. It was on the small, weathered building on Aleem Street. The orphanage, her orphanage, the place where she was abandoned as a baby, and where she found hope, laughter, and her sense of purpose. That morning, she'd received the final notice. Lee Group, the wealthiest conglomerate in the city, was buying up the neighborhood for their prestigious Huanyu business district. Every house, kiosk, and mechanic shop had caved in. Only one property remained, the orphanage, and Chinaza had fought for 3 months to stop its demolition. She stood up as the door burst open and a nurse peeked in, eyes wide. "Dr. Chinaza, someone's here to see you." Says he's from the Lee Group. Chinaza's heart skipped. What? Seconds later, a sharply dressed young man in a navy blue suit stepped in. His presence alone made the room feel smaller. "Good afternoon, Dr. Okafor. I'm Afani Dyke, assistant to Mr. Obinna Nwoke." Chinaza's pulse quickened. Mr. Obinna Nwoke? The reclusive billionaire whose name shook boardrooms? "I came regarding the orphanage," he continued. "Mr. Nwoke is offering a 10 million relocation package. It's generous, far above market value." Chinaza stiffened. "I already told your legal team. That place isn't for sale. It's home to 42 children. You can't just erase that." Afani's polite expression faltered. "Forgive my bluntness, but there's no one in this country who dares say no to Mr. Nwoke." "Well," Chinaza said coolly, "today, you've met one." He blinked, clearly taken aback. The door swung open again. This time, it was Dr. Ngozi Okafor, Chinaza's adoptive sister, striding in with her usual sneer. 10 million naira, she said, laughing. "You must be joking. Chinaza, are you trying to act noble? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Chinaza clenched her fists. "Ngozi, I said no." "Please," Ngozi scoffed. "You're just an adopted stray. That orphanage suits you. Always so righteous and broke." Before Chinaza could respond, voices from the hallway echoed. Staff had begun whispering. Word of the Lee Group visit was spreading, and then it happened today. Patient, an elderly woman, peeked into the room and exclaimed, "Dr. Chinaza, is it true? You're married to Mr. Obinna Nwoke." Chinaza froze. "What?" "We overheard in the corridor," another nurse said. "They say you're his secret wife, that you refused his money to stay low profile." Ngozi cackled. "Wait, are you people serious? She's pretending to be Mr. Nwoke's wife." But Chinaza, tired of being trampled on, looked the woman squarely in the eye and said slowly, "Yes, I'm Mrs. Nwoke." The room went dead silent. Even Afani blinked. Ngozi looked ready to explode. "You're insane." Chinaza shrugged. "Then call him and ask." It was a reckless lie, but at that moment, it became a shield, one she never meant to wield, but now couldn't take back. Later that evening, in a luxury penthouse across town, the real Obinna Nwoke, tall, brooding, and 35, stared at his phone. His assistant Afani had sent him a discreet message. "Sir, one Dr. Chinaza Okafor claims to be your wife to avoid relocation. She's defiant but interesting. I recommend watching." Obinna smirked. A woman who said no to him. That was new. Very new. He stood and poured himself a drink. "Prepare the intern program at Royal Crest Hospital," he said, voice low. "I'll join. Under a different name." Ifani raised a brow. "Sir, you'll go undercover." Obinna's eyes twinkled. With rare amusement. "Let's see what makes this Dr. Okafor so bold." The next day, Chinaza entered her office only to find a tall, handsome man rearranging files. He wore a crisp white coat and had an innocent, boyish grin. "Good morning," he said. "I'm Uche, your new assistant." She eyed him suspiciously. "You're late." "Apologies." Tricycle broke down. She almost smiled. Almost. For the rest of the day, Uche followed her closely, assisting with patients, handling lab forms, and asking oddly specific questions about hospital management. Chinaza found him irritating, but oddly comforting that evening. As she passed the hospital corridor, she overheard someone whispering, "That's her. The billionaire's wife." Another added, "Mr. Nwoke's so private. Makes sense he'd marry in secret." She clenched her teeth. This lie is spiraling out of control. Back in her office, Uche leaned against the doorway, holding up a newspaper. Says here, the CEO of Lee Group has never had a girlfriend. Zero scandals. Why would he pick a urologist? Chinaza narrowed her eyes. What are you implying? Nothing, he said with a playful smirk. Just that if you're going to lie, you better do it convincingly. She froze. Excuse me. But Uche just turned and walked away. Outside the office, Obinna removed his phone and typed a single message to Afani. Dr. Chinaza Okafor is fascinating. At Royal Crest Hospital, the whispers had evolved into full-on gossip. From janitors to senior consultants, everyone had a theory about Mrs. Nwoke. Some said Chinaza had secretly married Obinna Nwoke in a private ceremony abroad. Others believed she cured a mysterious illness for him, and he married her out of gratitude. Chinaza didn't know whether to scream or laugh. She had no idea how the lie had taken root so deeply. What began as a defiant shield to protect her orphanage had now blossomed into a citywide rumor. And the biggest twist? Mr. Obinna Nwoke himself hadn't denied it. Maybe he doesn't care, she muttered while flipping through patient files. Or worse. Maybe he didn't know. Uche, her new assistant, entered with a cup of warm zobo. Thought, you might need this. You've been scowling since morning. She took it reluctantly. Thanks, Uche. He smiled. You said my name like it leaves a sour taste. That's because you talk too much. I'm charming, he corrected, sitting at the edge of her desk. And curious. Like, for instance, what kind of billionaire marries a doctor who hates attention? Chinaza arched a brow. The kind who should mind his own business. He chuckled and took a sip from his own cup. Fair enough. What Chinaza didn't know was that Uche's real name wasn't Uche at all. It was Obinna Nwoke, and the CEO of Lee Group had spent the last 3 days posing as an intern in his own hospital just to understand this strange woman who dared to defy him. She was unlike anyone he'd ever met. Not just for her courage or her refusal to be bought, but for the way she carried herself. Fierce, honest, protective of children who weren't even her blood. He was beginning to see the orphanage through her eyes, and he wasn't sure how to feel about it. By the end of the week, Chinaza had a new problem. The hospital's 10th anniversary gala was fast approaching, and her department had been granted the honor of opening the ceremony. Largely because of her rumored connection to Obinna Nwoke, Dr. Okafor, the dean said with a syrupy smile. Everyone's expecting you to attend, with your husband. Chinaza blinked. With who? Mr. Nwoke, of course, the dean said. His presence will bring investors. It will save the andrology unit for good. Ngozi snorted from across the room. I doubt she can produce a billionaire on command. Chinaza stood frozen. How was she supposed to pull this off? Later that night, sitting in her small apartment, with her head in her hands, she muttered, I'm dead. I might have a solution. Uche, Obinna, said from the kitchen as he prepared Indomie. What if someone pretended to be him? She looked up slowly. What? I mean, he continued, eyes twinkling. What if I posed as Mr. Nwoke for one night? Chinaza laughed bitterly. Do you know how risky that is? I do, he said. But you're already too deep in this lie. Might as well make it spectacular. Asterisk on the night of the gala, Chinaza wore a deep blue gown with silver embroidery. Her hair was up in a soft bun, lips painted wine red, nerves stretched tight like piano wires. She waited outside the event hall, clutching her phone. He said he'd be here at 6:30 p.m. was 6:42. And then, headlights. A sleek black Maybach pulled up. The driver stepped out, opened the door, and Uche, no, Obinna, emerged, dressed in a velvet tuxedo that fit him like destiny. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Chinaza's jaw dropped. Where did you get this car? He offered his arm. Focus. We've got a ballroom full of believers waiting for their favorite fairy tale. Inside, the cameras flashed. People clapped. The MC boomed. And now, let's welcome our beloved Dr. Okafor and her husband, Mr. Obinna Nwoke. Ngozi nearly fell out of her chair. Impossible, she hissed to her boyfriend, Chuka. He looks like the real one. They rented a car, Chuka replied, trying to stay composed. I swear he's not Mr. Nwoke. The couple took the stage. Obinna leaned close. You know how to waltz. I taught dance at the orphanage, Chinaza whispered. And with that, they danced for a moment. Everything else melted away. The crowd, the lies, the flashing lights. It was just her, the hum of violins, and the mystery man holding her hand like she meant something. Then came the crashing. Stop everything. Vice President Ibuka Onyoha stormed in, eyes blazing. This man is a fraud. That's not Mr. Nwoke. Hey, hush fell. Obinna turned calmly, voice dangerously soft. Are you sure? That's not the real Obinna Nwoke. Ibuka barked. I've met him. He's never shown his face in public. He's overseas. From the back of the room, a new voice cut through. I can confirm that is Mr. Obinna Nwoke, said Afani Dyke, stepping onto the stage. Everyone turned. The invitation to tonight's gala was personally delivered by me. To Mr. Nwoke. He is our guest of honor. The man everyone thought was just a helpful intern was the real billionaire all along. The crowd exploded in gasps. Chinaza stood frozen, unable to breathe. Her eyes darted to Obinna. Why didn't you tell me? He offered her the same soft smile. Because I wanted to see who you were before you knew who I was. The morning after the gala felt like waking from a dream, with the hangover of reality setting in. Dr. Chinaza Okafor had danced with Obinna Nwoke, the real billionaire, in front of the entire hospital. The man who once stood quietly in her office holding charts and laughing about Zobo turned out to be him. The CEO, the ghost of every corporate headline in the country, and the man who had just confirmed, in public, that she was his wife. Chinaza sat frozen at her desk. What was she now? A liar caught in her own net? Or the accidental fiancé of Nigeria's most eligible bachelor, as if on cue? Uche, no. Obinna walked into her office with a casual grin, holding 2 steaming cups of tea. Good morning, Mrs. Nwoke, he teased. Chinaza groaned and buried her head in her hands. You look like someone who regrets winning the lottery. I feel like someone who's about to be arrested for fraud. She mumbled. He chuckled and sat across from her. Relax. You saved your orphanage. You made the hospital popular. You cured 3 men last week just by existing. She shot him. A glare. Why did you play along? His eyes softened. Because you fascinate me. You lied with such conviction for something that didn't benefit you. That orphanage, those kids. You weren't saving yourself. You were saving them. Her heart stuttered, just slightly. Before she could respond, her office door flung open. Standing there was a woman in a faded wrapper and ghillie, flanked by 2 familiar faces, Ngozi and Chinaza Okafor, her adoptive siblings. Mama? Chinaza whispered. Mama Okafor marched in like she owned the hospital. So it's true you're married to the richest man in the city, and you didn't say a word? Chinaza rose slowly. Mama, it's not what you think. Of course it's not. Ngozi snapped. You think you're better than us now, ABI? We raised you. Took you in when no one else wanted you. I wore your torn uniforms, Ngozi. Chinaza said, her voice rising. You never let me forget I wasn't your real sister. Mama. Okafor sniffed. Forget all that. You owe us. I spent money feeding you, clothing you. That comes with a price. She slapped a folded piece of paper on Chinaza's desk. A bill. 3 million. Labeled adoption compensation. Obinna, still seated, stood slowly. And if she doesn't pay? Mama Okafor looked him up and down. Who are you to ask? I'm the one you think she married. Mama's face paled. You're really? Obinna stepped forward. And, let me be clear, you will not extort her again. He opened his wallet, pulled out a black card, and tossed it on the table. Take the money. It's the last you'll ever get. Ngozi's eyes lit up. This one's real. It even has the metal feel. They grabbed the card and stormed out. But Obinna was already texting Afani. Freeze the account. Let them taste ice for breakfast. Chinaza stood quietly, hands trembling. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, Obinna replied. No one should make you feel like you owe them your life. A long silence passed between them. Finally, Chinaza whispered, thank you. But trouble wasn't finished with her yet. Later that evening, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a hospital diagnostic file, with a note, urgent. Family emergency. Come alone. She hesitated. When she arrived at the address, she recognized it immediately, the old Okafor compound. Inside, she found Emeka Jo, her ex-boyfriend, sitting, with her siblings, smiling smugly. What is this? Chinaza asked, already sensing danger. We just wanted to talk, Emeka said. Clear the air. About your marriage, and maybe, about your options. Ngozi held up her phone, camera rolling. You're recording me? Just a backup, Chuka said. In case you try to deny this later. Chinaza stepped back, breathing quick. You set me up. Listen, Emeka said, rising to his feet. No one believes you actually married Obinna Nwoke. We know you're lying, but I'm willing to help you for a price. She blinked. You're blackmailing me. No, Ngozi said with a smile. We're protecting you. If you marry Emeka and keep up appearances, we'll delete the video. If not, we'll leak it and destroy your reputation. Chuka finished. You people are vile, she whispered. Suddenly, the door burst open. Not as vile as you think, a voice called. Obinna. He stepped into the room, followed by Afani and 2 legal aides. You're being recorded as we speak, Obinna said. An extortion is a criminal offense. Everyone froze. Emeka paled. Ngozi tried to hide her phone. Chinaza stood, stunned. How did you find me? Obinna turned to her. Because I promised no one would ever hurt you again. Obinna already had her siblings' phones tapped after the gala, and he discovered Emeka had been secretly working with Vice President Ibuka Onyoha to sabotage the Hwanyu project and force the orphanage's demolition. Obinna's team arrested Emeka that night. Ngozi and Chuka fled the city. As they drove home, Obinna finally asked, Will you forgive me for not telling you who I was from the start? Chinaza stared out the window. Only if you forgive me for pretending to be your wife. He chuckled. I think we're even. She glanced at him. Obinna? Yes. Asterisk what now? He smiled softly. Now, we rewrite the story, and this time, truthfully. 2 days after the incident at the Okafor compound, life returned to a cautious calm. The blackmail video had been deleted. Emeka was facing charges. Ngozi and Chuka had disappeared like mice into the cracks of the city, but Dr. Chinaza Okafor remained unsettled. Obinna had saved her, again. He'd protected her reputation, defended her with a calm ferocity, and even arranged private tutors for children at the orphanage. And yet, Chinaza couldn't shake the voice in her head. What does a man like Obinna Nwoke want from a woman like me? Their bond had grown. That was undeniable. They spoke more often, sometimes late into the night. He brought her fresh fruit after long shifts. She made him laugh with sarcastic stories about her worst patients. They didn't kiss. They didn't call it love. But it was something, maybe something dangerous. One breezy evening, Chinaza returned to her apartment to find Mama Amaka Nwoke, Obinna's powerful and intimidating mother, standing at her doorstep like a judge summoned by fate. Madam Nwoke, Chinaza greeted, her voice tight. Mama Amaka gave a slow smile. You're prettier in person, but I'm not here to discuss your looks. Of course not. I want to know why my son is buying uniforms for your orphanage, signing deals with your hospital, and skipping board meetings to buy akba from a street vendor. Chinaza straightened. He's helping. Oh, he's helping all right, Mama said with a scoff. But is it out of kindness or obsession? Chinaza bit her lip. You'll have to ask him. Don't play smart with me, girl. I built Lee Group from ashes. I've seen women who chase men for money, and those who trick them with pity. You don't fool me. I never tried to, Chinaza said, her voice low. I didn't even want his help. I just wanted to save the orphanage. Then let me make this easy, Mama said, eyes narrowing. Leave my son. Name your price. Chinaza's hands curled into fists. I don't need his money. Or yours. I already said no once to your 10 million naira offer. If you try this again, I'll say no again. And this time, I'll say it louder. Mama stared at her for a long time. Then laughed. A lioness in doctor's robes. No wonder he's hooked. She turned to go. Still, you won't last. His first love is back in the picture. Chinaza's breath caught. What? Ask him yourself. All you Bubnwosu. They dated in university. She left him for treatment abroad. Now she's returned. With cancer. And unfinished business. Then she was gone. Asterisk that night. Obinna appeared at Chinaza's flat uninvited, holding a box of yam balls and tiger nuts. He looked exhausted. She didn't greet him. You lied to me, she said as he paused. About what? You never told me she was back. All you bub. His face changed. He set the box down. I was going to, he said carefully. But I didn't know how. Why? Chinaza snapped. Are you afraid I'd get jealous? Or that I'd leave before you made up your mind? He sighed. She's sick. I don't want to hurt her more than she already is. And what about me? Chinaza asked, voice trembling. You kiss me in front of the world. You fight for me. But, in private, I'm just the stand-in for the girl who left. That's not true. Then prove it. Obinna stepped forward, his eyes stormy. What do you want me to do? Tell her the truth, Chinaza said. That it's over. That you're with me now. He didn't answer. And in that silence, she understood. You still care about her, she whispered. He looked away. She opened the door. Get out. He didn't fight it. Days passed. Rumors flew through the hospital that Obinna and Obinna would appear together at a high society banquet, one hosted by Mama Amaka herself. Chinaza saw the posters, the headlines, the hashtags. Hashtag second chance love, hashtag Lee group reunion. She felt sick. That night, she went to stay with her best friend, Vivian, a pediatrician with a sharp tongue and little patience. Let me get this straight, Vivian said, spooning a gussie into her mouth. You fell in love with a billionaire, but he's emotionally constipated and stuck on a dying ex. Pretty much. You need wine, Vivian declared. Standing up, Chinaza buried her face in the couch. I need peace. At the banquet, Obinna stood beside Obinna, stone-faced. Cameras flashed. Guests murmured in awe of their reunion. Mama Amaka smiled proudly. Obinna leaned into Obinna's side, whispering like they were newlyweds. Obinna barely responded. And then, the MC declared, let's begin the night with a dance from our beloved Obinna Nwoke and the woman who stood by him from the beginning, Miss Obinna Nwoke. The crowd cheered. Obinna hesitated. Obinna reached out, a tear in her eye. For old time's sake. He nodded and took her hand. They danced. But across the hall, hiding behind the catering staff, Chinaza watched in silence, wearing a server's uniform, trembling. She couldn't stay away. She had to know what he would choose. As they danced, Obinna finally leaned down and said something only Obinna could hear. She froze. Her eyes widened. Then, filled with tears, she pulled away from him, ran off the dance floor, and disappeared behind a column. The music stopped. Obinna turned to the crowd. I came here tonight to tell the truth, he announced. Miss Obinna is a good person. She helped shape who I am. But I'm not hers. And she's not mine. He looked toward the catering staff. Chinaza, if you're here, I'm choosing you. The room erupted. Obinna, behind the curtain, wiped her tears and smiled. Chinaza later discovers that Obinna was never sick. She forged the medical records, using the same corrupt clinic that had helped Mama Okafor fake illness years ago. She never wanted Obinna back. She wanted Chinaza to test him, to make sure he was truly in love. It had all been a setup. Back at home, Obinna stood at Chinaza's doorway again, soaked from the rain, holding a single white rose. I failed your trust, he said. But I'm here now. And this time, I'm not leaving. She stepped aside, let him in, and for the first time, kissed him without fear, without lies. The kiss lingered. It wasn't rushed. Not wild. Not born of desperation like the lie that had started everything. It was slow, honest, and terrifyingly real. When Chinaza finally pulled away, Obinna still had his hand on her cheek. The silence between them hummed with the kind of electricity that didn't need words. But reality, like a persistent creditor, always comes knocking. You knew, she whispered, her eyes lowered. About Obinna. About her fake illness. Obinna nodded. She confessed after the banquet, he said. Told me it was a test. She wanted to see if I'd pick her out of obligation or if I was truly ready to move on. And I didn't hesitate, he said simply. Chinaza looked away, heart racing. And what if I had said no? What if I didn't forgive you? Then I'd have waited, he said softly. Years if I had to. She blinked fast. Why? Obinna exhaled. Because you were the first woman who looked me in the eye and told me no. Not for power. Not for games. Just because it was right. She stared at him, and for the first time, believed that she might actually be safe in someone else's love. Over the next few weeks, the entire city buzzed about the new power couple. Headlines read, Urologist who stole the billionaire's heart. From orphan to Mrs. Nwoke. Asterisk, Lee Group confirms 100 million naira investment in orphanage restoration. The orphanage, once crumbling, now had a new roof, solar panels, and renovated dormitories. Chinaza returned every Saturday to supervise the reconstruction herself, often accompanied by Obinna in jeans and a face cap, disguised as Uche. The kids adored him. Aunt Neka adored him even more. "Nah, this one you go marry, oh," she whispered. One afternoon, as Obinna helped fix bunk beds, Chinaza blushed. But behind the joy, another problem loomed. Li Group's board was growing impatient with Obinna's refusal to demolish the original orphanage site, a key spot in the Huanyu development blueprint. And worse, Vice President Obinna Nwoke, despite being exposed for his alliance with Emeka, had somehow slithered back into favor with Madame Obinna Nwoke. One afternoon, Ifani pulled Obinna aside. "The board wants an update," he said quietly. "They're pushing for forced demolition again. VP Nwoke claims you're prioritizing personal feelings over business logic." Obinna's jaw tightened. "I gave my word to Chinaza. That land stays untouched. Then you'll need to face the board yourself." Days later, Chinaza was back at the hospital when chaos erupted at the front gate. News reporters shoved microphones into her face. Patients stared. Someone shoved a printed headline into her hands. Lee Group CEO's girlfriend involved in alleged land grab scheme. "What is this?" she gasped. Ngozi's face stared back at her in the photo, smiling, holding up a legal document. She had filed a claim to be the rightful co-director of the orphanage, with authorization to approve its demolition. On behalf of the family. It was signed, stamped, and utterly fraudulent. Chinaza's hands trembled. She raced to the orphanage to find Mama Okafor, Ngozi, and Chuka there. "Again, we've come to reclaim our property," Ngozi announced proudly to the workers. "And to authorize the relocation." "You forged those documents," Chinaza said through clenched teeth. "Did I?" Ngozi shrugged. "You never had legal ownership of the orphanage, did you? You just worked here. You were adopted, remember? Not a real heir." Before Chinaza could answer, bulldozers pulled up outside the gates. "No," she cried. "You can't do this. Call the police if you like," Mama Okafor snapped. "We have the documents. We're tearing it down. Today." The workers moved. The children screamed. Aunt Neka clutched her chest. And then, "Stop." Obinna's voice roared across the field like thunder. He stepped out of a black SUV, flanked by security and Ifani, eyes blazing. "Anyone who lifts a hammer here will never work in this country again," he declared. "I dare you to try." Mama Okafor rolled her eyes. "Ah, so you came to protect your little girlfriend?" Obinna's gaze sharpened. "She's not just my girlfriend." He turned to the gathered crowd. "She's the reason this land exists. She is the only one who stood up for the forgotten. This orphanage exists because of her." He pulled a document from his coat pocket and handed it to the demolition team. "Lee Group officially transfers this land to the Okafor Orphanage Trust under the legal ownership of Dr. Chinaza Okafor." Chinaza blinked in shock. "Wait, what?" she whispered. Asterisk, "You said you didn't need my money," Obinna said, turning to her. "So I gave you the land instead." Ngozi's face turned purple. "That's illegal. You can't just—" "Oh, but I can," Obinna replied deadpan. "And I did. I'd rather lose the Huanyu project than lose the woman who taught me what it means to care." In a last-minute boardroom maneuver, Obinna had signed over full ownership of the disputed land to Chinaza at personal financial loss, knowing it would stall the Huanyu development. But in doing so, he also uncovered that Madame Amaka herself had secretly partnered with a rival company and planned to sell the land to foreign investors if Obinna failed. The scandal broke the next day. Madame Amaka was forced to step down from the board, and for the first time in decades, Obinna Nwoke was free to lead the company on his terms. That evening, Chinaza sat on the orphanage rooftop, watching the sunset as kids chased each other below. Obinna walked up and handed her a cold malt drink. "Thank you," she said. "For the drink?" "For everything." He hesitated. "I need to ask you something." She looked at him. "Will you be my wife? Not pretend. Not undercover. For real." Chinaza didn't answer immediately, but she smiled and nodded. Rain fell lightly on the rooftop of the Okafor orphanage. It wasn't the kind of rain that disrupted. It was the soft kind that kissed leaves and whispered of new beginnings. Dr. Chinaza Okafor sat beneath the covered terrace, watching the children dance barefoot in puddles. The building behind her was freshly painted, the new solar lights blinking gently against the coming dusk. So much had changed in just a few months. From a humble doctor fighting to protect forgotten children, she was now known across Nigeria as the woman who made a billionaire fall in love without even trying. But despite the headlines, The one thing Chinaza cared about most hadn't changed at all. Her home was still standing, and it was hers now. Legally. Forever. The city, however, wasn't done with drama. As news of Madame Obinna Nwoke's removal from Lee Group's board spread, so did the chatter. Who is the real Mrs. Nwoke? And just like that, all eyes turned to the wedding. Obinna didn't ask twice. The moment Chinaza said yes on the rooftop, he began planning, quietly, but purposefully. This isn't just a wedding, he told Afani, his trusted assistant. It's a public declaration that I choose her, not legacy, not business deals, not boardrooms her. The wedding day arrived. The hall was nothing short of a dream. Lush ivory roses, golden drapes, and shimmering chandeliers filled the grand venue. Guests arrived in limousines, senators and CEOs brushing shoulders with orphanage volunteers and hospital nurses. The media lined the red carpet like it was a royal affair, but something was missing, or someone. Ngozi. Chinaza had long stopped expecting her to show up, until the orphanage gate camera pinged a notification. Someone's here, Aunt Neka called out. You may want to see this. Standing at the gate, in a too familiar wrapper and oversized shoes, was Mama Okafor, flanked by Ngozi and Chuka, and a camera crew. Chinaza's family isn't invited to the wedding. Mama Okafor was shouting into a microphone. She forgot the womb that carried her. She wears diamonds, and we wear shame. Ngozi added with mock tears. I raised her, gave her my old clothes, and now she claims we're strangers. Inside, Chinaza watched it live from a small screen. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with disbelief. The lies, again. They're trying to ruin your moment, Obinna said from behind her. I won't let them, she whispered. Not today. She walked calmly into the hall, stepped onto the stage, and took the microphone before the ceremony could begin. My name is Dr. Chinaza Okafor, she said clearly, voice echoing through the golden hall. I grew up in an orphanage. I was adopted at 12 into a home that reminded me daily that I didn't belong. She paused, letting that land. But the truth is, I do belong. Here, with the children I fight for, with the patients I heal, and now, with the man who chose me when I had nothing. Obinna stood, his heart racing. His bride had just silenced an entire city with the truth. I am not ashamed of where I came from, Chinaza continued. But I refuse to let liars rewrite my story. Let them watch this wedding. Let them see love win. The audience erupted in applause. Outside the gate, the cameras stopped rolling. That evening, Chinaza walked down the aisle in a beaded white gown, her veil glinting beneath the chandeliers. Obinna stood at the altar in a midnight blue bodice stitched with silver thread, smiling like he'd been waiting for her for 100 years. I've met board members, world leaders, and billionaires, he said in his vows. But I didn't know the meaning of courage until I met you. Chinaza tried not to cry. You lied to the world to protect orphans, he continued. You made me want to be a better man. And for that, I vow, every morning, every night, to be yours completely. Chinaza breathed in, then said with a smile, I lied once, to protect my home. But the truth is, you became my home too. The hall wept. I don't need diamonds or shares. I just need you to keep standing beside me when I feel like hiding, to remind me that I deserve love. He nodded, jaw clenched with emotion. I do, she finished softly. And so do I. Outside, as they stepped into the waiting Rolls-Royce, paparazzi shouted, Mrs. Nwoke. One smile. Dr. Okafor, how does it feel? But Chinaza ignored them. She turned to Obinna and whispered, Promise me we'll never forget what it took to get here. He held her hand. We'll never forget. Then he opened a small box and handed it to her. Inside was a gold-engraved plaque that read, The real Mrs. Nwoke. Chinaza, my forever. She laughed and kissed him again. A week after the wedding, Chinaza received a formal letter from the Federal Health Council. Dr. Chinaza Okafor, based on your contributions to public health, pediatric care, and advocacy for underprivileged communities, we would like to nominate you for a National Award of Medical Excellence and offer you a position on the National Health Reform Committee. She stared at the letter for a long time, speechless. Obinna peeked over her shoulder. National recognition? She turned to him, smiling wide. And to think, all this started with one little lie. He grinned. And now it's the most honest part of my life. He lifted her hand to his lips. To Dr. Chinaza Okafor, my wife, my partner, and the woman who saved everything.